All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm just going to give you another moment to log on here, but we're so happy to have you. Hopefully it's a nice day where you are as well. Just while we're waiting for anyone else to join us, I'm going to share my screen really quickly. But let's get started. My name is Andrea Castle-Bretz. I'm the executive assistant of PACAC. That's the Pennsylvania Association for College Admission Counseling. A really long name, but we are a nonprofit organization of 1,200 members. Those are high school counselors, college admission representatives, independent education consultants, and all the people who really want to see you succeed after high school and go through this crazy journey of finding success in the post-secondary world. So again, your cameras and microphones are off, but we do encourage you to use your Q&A box. So ask a lot of questions so they can be answered during this time. And if you want to check out this session again, the recording will be at pacac.org/virtual, as well as several other sessions yet this week. This is the end of our Keystone Virtual College Exploration, but all the recordings for all of the 300 sessions will be posted on our site. But without further ado, I am going to pass it over to my friend, Matt.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Andrea. All right, so I will go ahead and I will share my screen here. And all right, well, first and foremost, thank you to everyone who decided to join us today. Really appreciate it. This presentation is going to be on our Clarkson School program here at Clarkson University. Clarkson School is actually an early college entrance program here at Clarkson, and we're actually the second oldest early college program in the country. So today we're going to talk about a number of different things that involve joining our program here at Clarkson. I'll give you just kind of a general overview of the program, then we'll go into some kind of more general details about what we offer and maybe why you might want to consider this option. So the Clarkson School was founded in 1978. We're actually, as I mentioned, the second oldest early college program, and it's essentially the opportunity for talented and motivated high school students to go ahead and begin college early. So what does that mean? It's basically the opportunity to come to Clarkson rather than going back to high school for what is normally the 10th or 11th grade year, as well as the senior year. So for most of our students, they're replacing the senior year of high school with this program. But on occasion, we actually have students join us instead of returning for the 10th and 11th grade year as well. So it really depends on how far along you are academically, what your foundational work looks like, certainly maturity level. But in general, as I mentioned, it's essentially that opportunity to replace that high school curriculum with a first year, full-blown university program here at Clarkson University. Just a little background on our students. They do come from, again, very similar to any other college, any other university setting, public schools, private schools, and home schools. About 60 to 70% of our students do come from New York State, which isn't necessarily a mind-blowing stat by any means, I don't think. Most students we find gravitate in that kind of 3 to 4 hour radius. So like I said, about 60 to 70% do come from New York State, but we have had students from basically every state in the country, as well as 16 different countries from around the world. So as I mentioned in this presentation, we are going to cover some kind of general stuff about what the program is, what you have access to at Clarkson, and what we provide our students. But kind of three main things I'd kind of like everyone to leave with. One, the fact that our students all attend the same classes as any other Clarkson University students. So we do not have high school classes. They are the exact same classes that you would have just like any other student here on campus shoulder to shoulder with all the other, typically Clarkson University freshmen. But again, depending on where you're coming in, you could be taking upper level classes here with other university students as well. Our students do have access to all of the same clubs, organizations, even athletic programs here on campus. So you can play Division III athletics, you can join any of the different intramural clubs, any of the various social clubs, academics, research. Research is something that a number of our students are interested in. You absolutely have access to that as well. So basically all of the same things that any other student has access to, you also have access to, even though you're doing it maybe a year or two early. One thing that really separates our program is kind of the third point here, and that's our students do live in their own residence while they are with us in the Clarkson School. So we have a separate residence hall located right in the middle of Clarkson University's campus. So we do different things with our students as well that we'll kind of get into a little bit. But again, these are the three main things that really separate out maybe what's a typical first year of college here at Clarkson and what you would get as a Clarkson School student coming in a little bit early. So why the Clarkson School? One of the questions I get, obviously, probably most often, and it makes sense. And there are a number of various reasons, but kind of the overarching, I guess, is just the fact that some students are just ready for a university setting, university academics, probably more so than their peers. They're looking for maybe an advantage that they're just not gonna get staying in high school for another year. They're ready for something a little bit more challenging. Perhaps you're just thinking, the senior year, maybe even the junior and senior year, going to be a bit more stagnant. I've done a number of the upper level programs and classes at my high school. I need to find something that's more challenging. A lot of our students tend to gravitate towards this program because they're seeking a peer group that's more similar to them. Something maybe a bit more tight knit, more stimulating, and just surrounded by other students that tend to be more focused and more driven. As I mentioned, you will gain an advantage if you are looking at maybe going on to another school after the Clarkson School. So one of the really nice options with this program is you're not necessarily saying that I'm going to go to Clarkson University for 4 years. You're basically just saying, I want to challenge myself for a year with a full-blown college schedule, being a part of a number of different things inside and outside the classroom, and building a resume and building a portfolio off of that that can be presented to some really competitive admissions pools in the country. If you don't want to stay at Clarkson, we'll help you apply to some of these other schools that maybe you've always dreamt of going on to. And as you can imagine, having something like this on your resume really resonates with other admissions pools, given that other students that you're probably going into a similar admission pool with are just coming from a senior year of high school. So to be able to show committees that you're capable of this type and doing well in this type of atmosphere, as opposed to maybe just being in high school for another year, again, it does resonate and it is very impressive. So academics, you're going to take approximately 32 to 35 college credits, as I mentioned, and I continuously will harp on this. It is a full-blown first year of college. It is not high school in any fashion. You are completing your entire freshman year with us. If you stay at Clarkson, you go directly into your sophomore year. So it's very straightforward. If you go somewhere else, you're going to be able to take those college credits for evaluation with you. And then they're going to decide what cohort you ultimately go into. Most students will remain in that sophomore cohort, or maybe you're just lacking a couple of classes to get to that sophomore status at another university. So research, off-campus experiences, and team-based projects are something that, again, most students are probably not going to find in a high school, maybe senior or even junior year. Research with all our professors is available. off-campus experiences. For instance, our students go into the Adirondacks for an entire semester. You live off campus, you work with professors doing research in the Adirondacks while you're also completing 5 or 6 classes for your college credits for that semester. So really nice opportunity, again, to differentiate yourself from maybe someone else, if particularly if you're maybe looking at going on to another school, or if you're looking at a co-op or an internship. Team-based projects are a number of different opportunities on campus, some of which are SPEED programs, which are our students experience for engineering and design. So they're basically like our robotics team. There's a design, build, and fly team. There's a free or snowmobile team, a number of different ways to get involved outside of the classroom where you're actually kind of taking what you're getting in the classroom and then implementing that outside of the classroom in some of these different projects. They are interdisciplinary, so all of the different departments and all the different academic majors here on campus can participate in those programs. You don't have to necessarily be in an engineering program. Students from our humanities department, various sciences, as well as business, they'll also participate in these programs. So you're working with other students that maybe aren't necessarily in the same classes that you would normally see. That's a really nice way to interact and to really get to know some other students across campus, and also understand how to communicate and how to work with maybe students that aren't necessarily as of a mindset that maybe you are, particularly academically. So our academic options on campus, we do have the School of Arts and Sciences, School of Business and Engineering, a number of different pre-options in terms of our pre-med, pre-law, pre-vet, pre-physical therapy, pre-occ therapy, and our pre-PA program. We will work with you once you do decide if you want to enroll with us, to make sure that you are taking classes that you want to be taking. So you're never going to go through this process alone. You don't necessarily even have to decide that you want to go into a particular major or a particular program. And in fact, as I mentioned in this last bullet point, we have students that will come into us every year knowing that they're maybe not necessarily even staying at Clarkson, but maybe mimicking a schedule after a school that they are looking at going on to. So you're taking as many credits as possible with you, but you're also, again, being able to show that school or that university what you are capable of at this level. So we can do that as well. It's very flexible in terms of the scheduling. You don't have to abide by a particular track if you don't want to. We can work with you to make sure, again, you're taking the classes that you want to be taking. So as I mentioned, the residence environment is really where it starts to differentiate between being a Clarkson School student and being a student here, for instance, just in a freshman year or a first year at Clarkson. So we do have our separate residence right in the middle of campus, as I mentioned. There is a 24-hour study lounge and classroom right here within our residence. We actually have 4 different environments, 2 of which are Clarkson School, and even our honors program would reside in there. But at the same time, it's all connected by our Clarkson School office. So if at any point you need assistance, you need to speak with someone, you can simply walk down the hall and we're right here. One of the nice perks of the program is not just the residence hall, but also the fact that you have a room that does have a private bathroom in it. So it'd be you and your roommate, and you have your own private bathroom together. Rather than in a typical first year, you're normally sharing a bathroom with an entire wing. So again, a really nice perk. Our dorm rooms, our residence halls were actually renovated this past summer. So they're all essentially brand new. We do have curfews, we have quiet hours, we have leave forms, and we also have house advisors and mentors. All of those things are in place because we recognize, of course, that you are a little bit younger. So I don't think we hover over our students, but we absolutely have a more checks and balances type system in place. For instance, the curfews and the quiet hours. Curfew is it's midnight during the week and then 2 a.m. on the weekends. Leave forms. If you want to leave campus for the evening, not a problem. We just need you to come in and let us know where you're going. And then mom, dad, or a guardian needs to give us a call, letting us know they know where you're going when you're coming back. So if you are not back at that scheduled time, we can reach out and find out what's going on. So again, a little bit different than a typical first year. Now, those things are typically waived after that first semester, provided that everyone's transitioning the way that they should, things are going the way they're anticipating, there are no red flags academically, socially, and just to make sure, again, that you're doing what you need to be doing, really, to move into that, not just spring semester, but part of this program really is to prepare you to go on into that sophomore year, whether it's here at Clarkson or it's somewhere else. The academic support is another layer that is probably much different than a typical first year of college. So our associate head of school, she's actually going to work with you, as I mentioned, to not just develop your schedule prior to, and even during the year, but also if you need different tutoring sessions, transitional programming like our professional development programs and our personal enrichment programs, resume writing, interviews and doing mock interviews. If you are looking at going on somewhere else, she's going to work with you very early on to make sure that you're submitting all your materials by your deadlines. If you're looking at possible recommendations from professors that you're working with, to approach them again very early on so that they are meeting their deadlines to submit those recommendations. Your essay and your application submission, she wants to go through that with you prior to submission to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward. She's been in the position for a little over 20 years now. So she's seen a number of students be very successful in their application to some very competitive admission pools. So she's here to work with you every step of the way. Again, nothing that you have to do alone. So this slide is basically just an average. And I think that's really what I'd like you to take away from this, given that we do use a very holistic approach to an application review. So by that, I just mean it is not one single thing that we hone in on. There are a number of different factors that we take into consideration for every applicant. But most people kind of want to see, and most students want to see, okay, well, what are the averages? So this is why I present this slide. One thing with our students, we do look first and foremost at your foundational work. Have you prepared yourself in a way that, based on what we've seen historically, is going to allow you to come into these classes and come onto this campus and be very successful? On average, our students will join us with a grade point average of around 3.7 to 3.8 out of a 4.0, or about a 93, 94 out of 100. However, some students are coming from different backgrounds, some different schools, maybe smaller schools, larger schools. Some students have had access to honors classes, AP and IB classes. So all of that's taken into consideration when we look at the overall GPA. First thing we look at is your high school profile, which will tell us what classes you've had available to you, and then what you've taken advantage of. So again, we want to see how you've built your foundation. Have you challenged yourselves academically? That's really first and foremost. PSAT, SAT, ACT scores, they're really secondary for us. Give you the averages here, but in fact, this year, we're not requiring students due to COVID to have to submit those scores. So it is test optional this year. If you'd like to submit them, that's absolutely fine, but it's nothing that you have to do. We are going to put more emphasis on, as I mentioned, the classes, the foundational programming, the GPA yielded from those classes, the recommendations that are going to come from your teachers and your guidance counselor or college counselor, your personal statement, essay, what you've done outside the classroom, extracurriculars, all of that is much, much more important to us than what you would do on, for instance, a Saturday morning taking a standardized test. I think this slide in particular kind of shows the type of student that we are bringing to campus doing very well. Each year, our students tend to outperform their freshman counterparts. GPA, this past class was right around a 3.42 on average. I think the freshmen were right around about a 2.7. So again, doing very well, even though coming to campus a little bit earlier and being a little bit younger. So the admission process is actually very similar, probably to most colleges, most universities, certainly to Clarkson. The application, the essay can be anywhere between 250 and 300 words, and it can be about anything you'd like to tell us. Normally, I encourage students to maybe think about something that we won't necessarily see in a recommendation from a teacher or maybe your college counselor, maybe why you want to start college early, or perhaps why you want to go into a major that you're looking at, or even a life-changing experience. I think all of those things are really nice as a supplement to an application. High school transcript, secondary school report, that typically comes from your guidance department, as well as 2 teacher recommendations, of course, will come from teachers. All of this can be done online. So when you do start looking at your application and you're submitting it online, there will be a section where you'll be able to enter in your guidance counselor information, your teacher information, and an email will automatically be generated to those people, letting them know that you would like them to nominate you, or to recommend you, I should say, for this program. And you'll actually be able to follow those recommendations through the process. So you'll be able to see on your status page everything that's been submitted, maybe what still might be outstanding, and then you can follow up accordingly. As I mentioned, the standardized testing this year is optional, as well as the interview. Interview, highly recommended. It's not something that we do require, but again, it is recommended. We can do a Zoom session, we can do a phone interview. If you can't make it to campus, that's absolutely fine. Of course, we love to have you on campus and to see all of our students and families on campus, but if that's not an option, just know that we can make other arrangements as well. The timeline for submission, June 1, which might seem like it's a ways out, but we do use rolling admission. And because of that, I typically encourage students to consider applying maybe a little bit earlier. Rolling admission will give you the opportunity to apply and gain your acceptance within about 5 to 7 days of submitting the actual application. So what I mean by that is you submit your application, all of your materials come in, and once they come in, we'll review your application within approximately a week, letting you know whether or not you're accepted. This is nice because it allows you to start making a plan going forward. If you do decide that you are going to enroll with us, then you're going to be able to maybe look at some classes that you want to exhaust prior to coming in for the high school diploma, or possibly even continue to build on your foundational work, maybe do some supplemental classes over the summer in preparation for coming onto campus. So that really gives you a lot of flexibility. Honors consideration is ongoing for all of our students through the year as well, provided that space remains available. And the financial aid package normally will follow within about 5 to 7 days of completing the FAFSA form. FAFSA form is basically a government form that we ask all of our students to fill out. You don't have to fill it out, and we can talk through this, of course, maybe a little bit later on, but it's basically a form that yields an expected family contribution, which is a starting point for any need-based financial assistance. So again, none of this stuff that you have to remember right now. Most importantly, it is rolling admission. If you do decide to apply, and once we have all of your materials for the application, we will let you know if you are accepted very quickly, again, within about 5 to 7 days. So the high school diploma is something that um, really is a talking point for all of our students, and rightfully so. This is something that you've been working towards for the better part of, well, your entire life. Um, we want you to obtain the high school diploma, and ideally, you'll be able to obtain the high school diploma through your home high school. There's a few different opportunities in terms of doing that. All of them have us working with you on a plan with the high school administration to exhaust the diploma requirements. A few different opportunities, one being to do that prior to enrollment. So the first one here, you essentially would take the last few classes to obtain the diploma and to meet your requirements and graduate early. So I think most people know a student who probably graduated a little bit early, maybe just needed a couple of classes to fulfill the requirements, did those perhaps over the summer, and then completed the requirements early. That's certainly an opportunity. If you're looking at staying at Clarkson, that's probably the direction that I would recommend going in. If you're not, if you're looking at maybe going on somewhere else, the next two are probably where I would put my focus. Completing those requirements during the first semester, and then also just completing them through the entire year. They're essentially the same option, except in the first, of course, you're completing, maybe you just need an English class and a PE class to obtain your high school diploma and to meet the requirements. We can very easily build that into a first semester here. You would take the class here, we would transfer that back to your home high school, meet the requirements, and then you would be considered a student who has obtained the high school diploma or has at least exhausted the high school diploma requirements. Completing during the year, essentially the same thing. Maybe you need the English as well as the PE, but perhaps you also need a social studies or maybe a government and an economics. So maybe something that you want to extend out through the year. But we can do that as well and build those classes into the entire year's program rather than doing them in the fall semester. It's really wherever you're at academically and what's going to be best in terms of completing with us, whether that's in the first semester or through the year, based on, of course, your major here and the classes that you'll be taking to go along with the classes you'll need for the diploma requirements. If the high school is not willing to basically allow you to remain duly enrolled with them at the same time you're here with us, then the last option would be to take the task. The task is an equivalency diploma exam, which would give you a New York State equivalency diploma. So it's basically a means to an end. Really, the first three scenarios are what we would look at initially, but then if it for whatever reason comes about where the high school is not willing to allow you to complete the last couple of requirements with us, and then once those requirements are met, provide you with the diploma, then taking the equivalency exam is certainly an option that you can look at. Cost and financial aid. So cost is exactly the same as any other student on campus as, well, really due to the fact that, as I mentioned, you're considered a fully matriculated Clarkson University student. So taking the same classes, access to everything that everyone else on campus has access to. So basically Clarkson charges you the same. So makes sense from that standpoint. That being said, all of our students can be considered for the same scholarship money, the same grant funding through the university as any other student. So you're going to have the same access to that funding as any other student on campus that maybe even came after the senior year of high school. All of our students receive at least $30,000 in their financial aid package. So on average, our students actually receive more and tend to receive more in their scholarships and in their overall funding through the university and through the Clarkson School. If you do decide to stay at Clarkson for your sophomore and then of course junior and senior year after the Clarkson School, those awards do go with you. provided you maintain satisfactory academic progress. Or basically, I tell students essentially a 2.0 or better. If you have that going through, then you will continue to keep those awards that you've been offered during the Clarkson school year through the remaining 3 years at Clarkson. So after the Clarkson School, again, actually very straightforward. You have the option to, of course, come back for your senior year, or I'm sorry, for your sophomore year, provided that you've maintained that satisfactory academic progress, or you can move on to another school that maybe you've always been interested in. And like I said, we're here to help you with that process as well. Historically, about 50% of our students have decided to stay here with us, with the other 50% going on. I've been in the program for approximately 13 years, 14 years now. I would say it's probably closer to about 60% of our students are now staying with us, with of course the other 40% moving on. Some of the schools that our students have moved on to, here's a list of those schools. I'm not going to, of course, read down through them, but obviously a fairly impressive list. Like I said, our students tend to come to campus very well prepared and, of course, do very well and are able to gain an acceptance at some pretty good schools around the country. All right. So with that, here's my contact information. If anyone has any questions, if you need anything, would like clarification, or would certainly like to speak further about what we offer here at the Clarkson School, love to speak with you a bit more. Send me an email, give me a call. Happy to assist you any way I can. So really appreciate everyone joining us. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and I'll turn it back over to Andrea.
Thanks so much, and thank you for sharing all of your knowledge about Clarkson and your special program. Again, thank you to everyone who joined us today. Don't forget that there are more sessions at pacac.org/virtual. Have a great evening. Bye.
Thanks. Take care. Bye-bye.